New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, welcome back. I am Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, your host, and this is New Thought. Good Lord, I'm saying New Thought Media Network because I'm reading the banner that's going across the bottom. This is Global Focus Today, and I'm delighted to have you here, and you're going to love our guest. I'm so excited. There's a phrase that they use in history and science of a Renaissance man. And our guest today is a Renaissance man. He's a minister. He's has a doctorate of divinity. He runs a center. He does spiritual coaching and counseling. He teaches classes. He has spiritual adventure workshops. We're going to talk. He writes books. But the coolest thing that he does, well, one of the coolest things that he does is called God Calls. And this is my favorite thing because you never know when it's going to happen. But a couple of 3 times a week, my phone will ring. And when I pick it up, a voice says, "It's today's God Call with Dr. Bill." And I get 30 seconds of the most concentrated, exactly what I needed to hear in that moment, God talk you ever heard in your life. And if you didn't hear anything but that, then it was worthwhile being here today. Please help me welcome Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony from New Thought Philadelphia and, oh, by the way, administrator of the affiliated New Thought Network in the bargain. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so tickled to have you here. I can hardly stand myself.
Thank you for having me, Sharri. It is wonderful to be here. And whenever anybody describes me as a Renaissance man or a jack of all trades or any of that stuff, I hear the voice in the back of my head saying, he's just scattered and can't figure out what he's going to do.
Well, and I left out one of the most important things. In addition to all of that wonderful metaphysical stuff, you're a magician.
Yep. Magician and a technology guy as well.
I left that out too. Of course, a successful minister has to also be a stand-up comic, but that's beside the point.
Well, yeah. Yeah, so I look back at like 9 or 10 different careers that I've had, not just jobs, but careers. Minister being the most recent of them, and working in technology in the printing industry. And I was a zany morning show personality on the radio way back in the good old days. And the question comes like, can't you focus on something? So you got Global Focus Ministries.
No, but see, here's the problem with that is that you do focus. You focus 100% on whatever it is you're doing right then. And then you just shift your focus to the next thing. Why you're one of my favorite guests here. We are never going to run out of stuff to talk about.
That's true.
And you have a new class starting today I want to hear about because this is one of my favorite authors and I didn't know he had a new book.
Yeah, a book that came out a year or 2 back. It's the book is Living Untethered by Michael Singer, the guy who wrote The Untethered Soul. And the subtitle is Beyond the Human Predicament. And I got introduced to this last fall, and it is absolutely captivating. It is the universe of spiritual practice, all in a very concise and practical form. And of course, being a spiritual practice, it's easy to explain, but not easy to do. especially when we're going to be living untethered, because it's about letting go of the things that are tethering us. And so the good news that we're going to explore in the class is, first of all, it can be done, and second of all, here are some steps to follow to do it. And it's an 8-week class, so we'll see how everybody does.
Yeah. Well, and that easy to explain and not easy to do thing is because easy and simple are not synonyms, and it's simple to explain. It's just not easy to do. So that's pretty cool. So what else is new and exciting in the world of New Thought Philly and Anton?
Let's see. Anton Workshop is coming up on Saturday. Rick Moss is doing the quarterly workshop. And it's a lot of it is very similar to the stuff that's in Living Untethered, because Rick's work has been about healing childhood trauma. And a lot of times that's what tethers us. So coming at that in multiple different directions. For me personally, being the Anton administrator, the annual giving statements from the 501c3 have been sent out. So, it's,
I got mine.
Yeah, and you only think of that about the one of them.
That's only one of them. That's right. It's on my schedule for tomorrow to send out the ones for my 501c3. So I understand.
And amen that one's in the rearview mirror. And
I got to tell you, I think it was brilliant having Rick Moss be the Thought Leader Thursday guest for this month, because anybody who was there is going to be here Saturday.
Yeah, and it's it's wonderful deep work. I've known Rick for probably 15, 20 years, and had the opportunity to work with him personally and also workshops. And just a great resource and a great opportunity to connect and deepen. And those are the things that are coming up and coming around, is that there's new possibilities for doing different things. You just realize that New Thought Philly has been meeting hybrid. We do online every Sunday morning for our celebration, and we started meeting in person, and it was a year ago. It was a little over a year ago that we started doing that. So we now actually have a home, and it's in a community event space in the East Falls section of Philadelphia, and it's wonderful to be there. And some of my fellow ministers are saying, well, when are you going to go back to being in person all the time? And it's like, during the pandemic, we grew our geographic footprint huge. Like, there are people who are participating. A practitioner in Milwaukee and a board member. One of them is in Delaware and the other one is in Louisiana. So, and people spread out all over the country and sometimes all over the world on Sunday mornings. And it's wonderful when we get together in person and we really make the technology work so that we include everybody. But it's a reminder for the folks who are just on Zoom or just watching on YouTube that they're not there. So we made the commitment to at least half the time and keep it so everybody's going to be virtual. So, but it's nice to have a home.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, now, there's a word that shows up in a lot of your stuff that I really love.
Okay.
And it's because it's what makes it real for me. And I want you to explain it. It's on the screen right now. The word is practical.
Okay.
Because that's what practice is about, is practical. If it's not practical, people are going to go, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and then they're going to turn around and walk away. But practical is like the number one tool in your toolbox. So talk about that for a minute. Tell us about it.
I will, and first of all, I'll do the origins of practical prayer. I came into New Thought through religious science, and studied the work of Ernest Holmes, and his huge contribution was spiritual mind treatment, and that is a very specific technique of prayer. And Ernest Holmes was the synthesist, so he basically studied all the religions and said, well, what's the best of this one and the best of that one and the best of the other one? And he noticed that the best prayers followed a similar format, and that's what a spiritual mind treatment is. And he did his work 100 years ago, and that was when the Western medicine and Eastern medicine and chiropractic and osteopathy and all the different modalities were trying to be the predominant one. And so he called his technique spiritual mind treatment, and the people who did it practitioners, and got his own little language. You could go to one of those religious science churches and overhear two people talking. Oh, well, I was having an issue, so I went to my practitioner, got spiritual mind treatment, and I manifested a demonstration. And their friend will say, "That's wonderful." And if you have a new person come in and listen in and say, "Oh, what are they talking about? What are they talking about?" And there are other people who say, "A mind treatment? I'm not going to let you mess with my mind." And that's not what it means. It's about using our mind to create something new. So, as I was embarking upon my own independent ministry, I decided, well, let's continue the practice, but use different terminology. So I rebranded spiritual mind treatment as practical prayer. And there's a dispute amongst the different branches of religious science as to whether there are 5 steps in a spiritual mind treatment or 7 steps. And so basically I said, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to number them, because sometimes you need the extra 2 and sometimes you don't need the extra 2. And it's now a practical prayer. So you can go have somebody who does practical prayer do a practical prayer for you and get a result. So that's the title of the book, Practical Prayer for Real Results. And it's a practical prayer because it changes the experience of life that we're having. And the whole process is about identifying what it is we want to have. And usually, or as often as not, that's guided by what we're experiencing now that we don't like. So we start with a pivot, and we turn away from what we don't like and open to what we do like, and then do this affirmative prayer practice to invite that in and have that be part of our experience. And it is hugely powerful, completely flexible, and it works. So, and on Sunday mornings at New Thought Philadelphia, we do a little segment on prayer work stories. So what have you been praying for that's worked? We want to hear the results.
And you know what the funny thing about that is? It's when you get the result you looked for and you're surprised. I feel sometimes like I need to apologize to Spirit for being surprised because what I asked for, I got. And I don't think I'm unique in that. I think that's a pretty common response, is to be surprised because what you asked for, you got.
My favorite stories, my favorite ones are the stories of doctors scratching their heads and apologizing because the original test must have been wrong because there's no sign that the person ever had that disease.
Right.
Those are my absolute favorite. But my other favorites are the ones where people got exactly the experience that they wanted to have, but it didn't look anything like what they had in mind. The good shows up in such an unexpected direction. My favorite was, and this is from, at this point, decades ago. This woman was divorced, had a kid, wanted to be married again, and he wanted to have a blended family and somebody that she could be in love with. And she brought that into her foundational class, and that was the intention that she set, and did the prayers. And as she mentioned later, after she was married and happily settled into this blissful partnership with a blended family, she said, "Blow me over with a feather to think I was a lesbian." Because she neglected to mention that it was going to be with a man.
Yeah.
But the two of them have been married and deliriously happy with each other and a perfect fit, and it is love unfolding, even though it's not what she thought she had in mind.
Oh yeah, it reminds me of the spiritual equivalent of what happens when I go to a really good restaurant, because I always have to ask for a go box. And when I ask for the go box, I say, "Your eyes are bigger than my stomach." And that's the truth of Spirit. The eyes of Spirit are always bigger than what I can imagine, what you can imagine, what anybody can imagine, because we're finite and Spirit's not.
Yep. Anything is possible. And that freaks people out sometimes.
I think it scares the living daylights out of people sometimes. because limits can make you feel safe. Limits can make you feel protected, and when you say I don't have to have limits, then holy cow, that means I have to take responsibility for how I respond to all of the other stuff that could happen in the world. Yep.
One of the things that I've been doing, and it's coming up in a couple of years now, maybe even longer, is the Practical Prayer Podcast. So, and we actually do the live recording session on New Thought Media Network on Mondays. It's 1:00 my time. And then we produce the show and it drops as a podcast on Wednesday mornings. And when I was first looking for a way to do a podcast, as a longtime broadcaster, I just had this opinion that I should, if somebody wanted to listen to me, they should give me a very tall tower with a transmitter at the bottom of it. But I got over that. And I did a couple of pilots talking to New Thought people, and I didn't think we were going to have more than like a half a dozen episodes before we ran out of stuff to talk about. But then I found a partner for the podcast who is a student and had spent 35 years on the pulpit in Christian churches, the 3 different denominations, and then found New Thought, and it ruined her as a Christian pastor. So she's carving out her own trail at this point. But she brings that perspective of not understanding that this all works. And that's what we talk about. We spend a half an hour talking about that every week. And learning what the other kinds of prayer are, it's like that's why I ran away from spirituality or religion to begin with, is because it didn't make any sense. That I want something and I'm going to ask God out there up in the clouds to do me a favor, even though I don't deserve it. And, the likelihood of that actually working is pretty slim.
That's another thing that I've noticed people have a lot of response to in New Thought. And that is the idea that I am absolutely, positively, without any doubt, completely worthy of any good that could ever exist.
Yep.
There's this, and here's the one that makes people go nuts with me, is I say to them, God never forgave anybody for anything, because God never saw anything that needed forgiven. And they go, bah, 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 And
what about those bad people over there?
Yeah, what about those bad people over there? And then there aren't any bad people. There are people who do things that are not healthy, that are not helpful, that are not in the best interest of the human race. But there are no bad people. And, sometimes you need to stand behind a fence when you say that.
I think we did episode number 138 yesterday, and we're still talking about it.
Yeah. And the scary thing for me is that I can say that with absolute conviction. And still, when that person does that thing, my whole body goes, my whole self clenches, my whole spirit clenches, and I have to treat and move my feet. And sometimes the most important treatments I do are when I'm looking in a mirror. And that's part of why practical is so important to me.
Oh yeah. And getting ourselves to the point where instead of having a huge overreaction, we can say, "Oh, there goes God driving like an idiot." When I was getting ready to go to ministerial school, the very first time I said yes, after 10 years of saying, "Don't be silly, why would God want me to be a minister?" I had an experience where one of the people who was interviewing with me was redirected. And the reason he was redirected was because he had road rage. They had us all go out to dinner in a restaurant, and that way they could observe us in our native environment, And he had some serious, I was afraid to get back in the car with him, road rage. And he was back the next year, and the next year they took him. And so I asked him, "How did you do that? How did you do that?" Because that road rage was not just skin deep. I mean, that was at a cellular level. That was at the level of quarks, And he said, "Well, I decided that the only way I was going to be able to do it was if I could stop seeing the drivers of the other cars and start seeing Jesus." Because that was the only God face that he knew for sure was a God face. I would have probably picked Buddha, but Buddha didn't drive a car, so Jesus was probably a better choice. And he said, every time somebody cut me off, I said, "Hey there, Jesus, you go right ahead on. I'm not in that big a hurry at all." Every time somebody honked at me, I said, "Hey, Jesus, good to see you."
Said every time somebody wouldn't let me on or off the freeway, I would say, "It's okay, Jesus, I'll work it out," And I laughed, and then I went, my first response was I would have picked Buddha, but it works. It's and the idea is just, that we have to shift our perception.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what every single one of the things you do is about. It's about shifting your perception. And people are willing to say, I'm willing to shift my perception. And then you tell them you want them to shift their perception in themselves, and they run back into the corner again. So talk some more about what you do and how you do it, because I just love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is about perspective and about how we look at things and how we engage with things. And I love talking about practical prayer. I love working with people and doing practical prayer. I love the counseling that I get to do with folks. And one of the things that I've noticed is that when somebody comes to me for prayer and spiritual counseling, they've got some huge problem in their life. And the sort of thing that, if you went into therapy for it, it would take, 7 years of therapy. And a lot of times, and especially is when, we set up multiple sessions. By the third or fourth session, the initial problem has completely resolved itself. It's no longer an issue. And whatever the follow-up one, they came in because, they've been having a horrible time with work. And then, by the second session, things are straightened out, and they gave me a new opportunity and transferred me into work with better people. But I, really love to have a relationship. And by the third one, they're seeing somebody, which I love. I absolutely love when that stuff happens. It makes it difficult, to have an ongoing, like, annuity practice, because when somebody goes into psychotherapy for 7 years, the therapist is, gets an appointment every week for 7 years.
Yep.
And I am just as happy to have the success and the transformation come about and have it be instantaneous. And for me, that's the reminder, is that anything is possible. And as soon as we open up to that possibility and we stop telling God how to do it, then the results are astounding. They're absolutely astounding. And I like bringing that stuff to all the things that I'm doing. And there are a lot of ways that I'm sharing my talent. We talked about all the things that I've got going on, with the God calls and with the daily meditations that are online, and running
I'm going to cheat right now.
Okay.
I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to ask you to do me a favor.
All right.
So the something I want to say is, what you're talking about is what, when I was teaching college, what I called seeing the light come on over somebody's head.
Yep.
Only as a minister, you see the light come on and glow right out of them. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is, would you give us a God call?
Sure. You want me to play you one?
No, I want you to do one right now. Ad-lib it. Because I know you can do that.
I can do that. Let me see. All right. They come in various flavors. And so I will tell you. And it's my daughter, who's the intro voice, who says, here's your God call.
Who's that? Who that is? She's so cute.
She's adorable. She grew up in this teaching before she abandoned it and then got lured back in. So she says, here's your God call, Reverend Bill. And I say, there's a truth that I need to point out to you. There's something that you absolutely, positively need to know. And you need to be aware of it and believe it to the center of your very being. I will tell you this. I will guarantee you that it's true and invite you to know it with me. You are the bright light of God's love, shining in a way that is unique and specific and special, and only you. Let your light shine. Be that bright light of love, and let it flow to share with the world.
And then click, it's done. I love that. That makes my whole week, every single time. It doesn't matter what kind of day I'm having. It might be a day when I found the pony, and it might be a day when I'm still shoveling the poop. But no matter what day it is, when I pick up that phone and I see that 215 phone number, it all drops off. Okay, good. Thank you.
There are some people who get the God calls, and they intentionally let them go to voicemail because they want to be able to play back the recording and sometimes listen to it a few times. So...
Well, and there's a little thing at the end that says, if you're listening to this on an answering machine, just press such and such a button to hear it again. So, I mean, I love If nobody got anything out of today's program except that God call, they got their money's worth.
Okay.
Spiritually.
There's a book of God calls that's going to be coming out later this year.
Oh, sign me up.
Okay. I will invite you to the what is it, the release event?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
We will do that. It was supposed to be March 16th, but I think it's going to be later than that.
Oh, that makes my whole spring.
Yeah. And I mean, when we did the transcriptions, because I've been doing them since like 2014, 4 times a week. So there were 900 in the library at that point. So we just transcribed all of them and picking out 366 good ones. So it's going to be like a book a day of God calls.
Outstanding. I didn't even think about that. Oh, I'm so thrilled. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, well, there are some questions I ask every guest.
Okay.
And so I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to start with the first one. And the answer is usually yes, because nobody thinks about it until I ask the question, but that's okay. The question is there anything that you want folks to know about you, about your ministry, about practical prayer, about anything that I haven't asked you about yet?
I love that you say that the answer to that is yes. And the answer is yes. And what is it? I can't tell you what it is specifically, but it is let's dance. Let's do something together. Whether it's listening to a 30-second God call 4 times a week, or dropping by for a morning meditation, which are on the Philly Spiritual Adventures meetup, and you can also find info about that on at New Thought Philly. Come to a Sunday celebration. Take a class. Do a session. Get the Practical Prayer book. Do an event with affiliated New Thought Network. Just like let's dance together somehow and see what kind of good is available. So the yes is both ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know which specific one it's going to be. Probably stuff that I mentioned that I do. Oh yeah, I'm on Insight Timer. So you can listen to practical prayers and meditations on Insight Timer, vanilla and premium, and we started doing some of the morning meditations on Insight Timer live. So pick something, come say hey, or watch and lurk from the background.
And lurk from the background. I like that too. So the next question is, how does what you do, practical prayer, spiritual adventures, all of the stuff that God calls all of it, how does all of that encourage, advance, increase, pick your own verb, conscious evolution?
Conscious evolution happens one person at a time. It's wonderful when we get together in groups and consciously evolve together. That's what the Anton retreats are about. That's what the classes are for. That's what the celebrations and the group activities are for, because we all have a lot in common. And the daily meditations, we'll get together, the group will spend a few minutes chatting about what's going on. And usually out of that, somebody will either bring a specific request that we bring into the meditation, or the chatter will remind me of something. And we will do that meditation. And it's an opportunity to take the conversation about what's been going on in our lives and bring that into a spiritual context and invite in a deeper awareness of the truth of who we are. And that is an example of expanding consciousness. It's finding stuff in the everyday and inviting a deeper awareness of spirit to it.
Yeah, it is. Okay, now, same question with just a little bit of a twist. How does what you do and the way you do it unveil, expose, elevate, pick your own verb, world peace?
There's an implication that there is world peace, that there's the possibility of world peace, and that I'm doing something. We set the intention for peace, and more than for peace, it's for harmony, for sufficiency for everybody. I mean, at this point, it'd be lovely to have world peace, but there are people who are involved in wars especially the people who are defending themselves against aggressors, who want the peace not to be just giving up on on defending themselves, but they want back what was taken away from them. So there's a balance and a harmony and equilibrium there. So what I'm doing in consciousness is to invite that experience of harmony and connection among people. And it's a long road. It's a long road because we have such a tendency to be tribal and look at people who aren't us or in our group as being other, and then to categorize them and then to call them names. Evil is a favorite name. And that's where the wars are coming from. That's where the lack of peace, I will say, is coming from, is that arbitrary separation or belief in separation, and then that sets up the conflict. So the little micro ways to do it are, first of all, in consciousness, which is the big one that's going to change everything. And to start with where I am. When I see myself seeing separation, to look beyond that and look for the oneness.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Now here's the one that's fun. You might want to close your eyes for this one because you have to use your imagination. Presuming that every single thing, every event, every activity, every relationship in your whole life goes exactly the way you want it to go. For 10 years. 10 years from now, what does Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony and Practical Prayer and New Thought Philly look like? And Anton?
It's a big bunch of people loving each other and celebrating the truth and patting ourselves on the back for the amazing way that we created world peace when nobody thought it was possible.
Yeah. I'll take a serving of that.
Yeah, that is a fun one.
So the last question, will you come back?
Sure.
All righty, and the very first opening I have is December 10th. Can I plug you in?
December 10th of this year?
Of this year.
Let me see, because I sometimes do weddings and funerals, and I might be scheduled for a funeral that day.
On December 10th of this year?
No, I'm not. Yes, December 10th, and you're the same time?
Same time, same station.
I can do that.
I'll send you an email to remind you when it's time.
The Anton monthly call to prayer is on the second Sunday or the second Tuesday every month, and so there is one of those, but that's at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern.
That's my one complaint about Anton, is that the call to prayer is in conflict with my program, so I can't go.
Oh, you can. It's only a half an hour. It ends right when your pre-show starts.
All right, cool. Well, then maybe I could. I'll give it a shot.
Well, I'm going to. So
all right.
Make that all work.
I'm going to tell you and everybody else that you don't want to miss this show next week, because our guest is Reverend Dr. Missy Higginbotham, and she is a hoot and a half. If Dr. Bill is a Renaissance man minister, she is a Renaissance woman minister, educator, fabulous person, and you don't want to miss it. So come back then. See you then. In the meantime, have a fabulous week. I love you. Bye.
Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe.